reminders of that. It's, you go to the legislative page and go to our committee, and you can pull up testimony for today, or any past testimony as well. But like I said, if that's not working for you, please let us know. We want to be able to accommodate everybody. We know that's not really everybody's thing. So with that, I will turn to requests for bill introductions. Do we have any requests? I was expecting someone and I don't see him here. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and move into our informational hearing, and at some point that we have coming in. Anyway, if we need to return to that point in the agenda, we will. So we're kind of planning to do a series of informational hearings this year, and we're going to start off, I think, as it looks now, we're going to have those on Wednesdays. And so today, as you've seen on the agenda, we're going to be discussing childcare. And next Wednesday, I'll just give you a little heads up, I think the agenda is probably already posted, but we're going to talk nutrition next Wednesday. So we're going to be gathering some information, get some background on possible legislation coming down the pike. So let's go ahead and get started in our agenda. We have, we're going to talk child care, and we'll hear first from what's this, KDHE, Health and Safety Regulations of Child Care Facilities. We've got Kelly Mark.
Good afternoon. I'm virtual.
Virtual. Okay. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for you all. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Concannon and esteemed members of this committee. My name is Kelly Mark, and I'm the Interim Director of the Bureau of Family Health at the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. The KDHE Early Care and Youth Program, better known as Child Care Licensing, is positioned within the Bureau of Family Health at KDHE. I apologize I cannot be there with you in person today. I am under a COVID-19 quarantine protocol. So today, thank you very much for allowing me to give you an overview of the Child Care Licensing Program. As you can see on this slide, the purpose of child care regulations is to reduce the risk of preventable harm to children while they are in out-of-home care. The program provides a basic level of protection for all children, ensuring a standard for health and safety for children in care across the state. In 2019, we celebrated 100 years since the inception of the Child Care Act, KSA 65-501. In 1919, Kansas licensing laws pertaining to maternity hospitals or homes and homes for infants went into effect. The laws, referred to as the Child Care Act, arose from the need to protect children from poor environments in group settings that put children's health and safety at risk. KSA 65-528 is the child care policy for the state. This statute imparts the desired outcome of child care policy in our state, which is that Kansas families are able to fulfill their roles as primary child care givers and educators of young children by having access to high-quality, affordable child care. This statute has several principles that guide the development and the implementation of state policy to achieve this outcome, such as an investment in our children. Child care is a critical investment that affects a child's readiness to learn. High-quality child care programs recognize and implement good early childhood practices. Another principle is consumer orientation and education. Childcare policies and programs must be responsive to the changing needs of families and educate families about available options, identifying quality programs, and selecting appropriate care. Sweeping legislation in 2010, known as Lexi's Law, provided amendments to the Child Care Act. These laws eliminated the category of registered family daycare homes, which were not inspected, and required the transition of homes to licensed and inspected child care facilities. Lexi's Law required licenses to be issued with an expiration date and a valid seal or sticker. Previously, licenses did not expire. Lexi's Law established a licensing fee fund and permitted increases in annual licensing fees to support core components of the program, such as inspections. The law permitted, under certain circumstances, the permanent revocation of a license, prohibition from applying for a new license, or working in another child care facility. It required the development, through rules and regulations, additional requirements for the components of supervision of children, and additional health and safety requirements necessary for the protection of children. The law required child care facility applicants be high school graduates or equivalents, and it required the development of an online information system to support families in making informed child care choices. The system may be used to review compliance history of a current or potential licensed child care provider. Lexi's Law was a result of a grassroots effort that included local child care advocates who had lost their children in registered daycare homes. Registered homes required no initial inspection and only required an inspection if a complaint was received. Licensed childcare requires an initial and annual inspections. Testimony clearly showed that families were unaware of the lack of oversight of registered childcare facilities, including use of space that was not approved, a lack of supervision, and too many children in care. The passing of Lexi's Law has shown a positive impact in Kansas. Our total enforcements have declined from 523 in 2010 to 73 in 2020. This leads us to believe providers are achieving and maintaining compliance with regulations more now than ever. The most common reasons for enforcement are failure to comply with licensing requirements and a prohibited person living, working, or volunteering in the facility. The fact that all facilities are inspected prior to licensure means we are preventing licensure of facilities that do not meet foundational health and safety requirements. The total number of childcare deaths has declined from 12 in 2007, which is when we began tracking that, to a low of 0 in 2020. The total number of deaths in licensed facilities fluctuates by calendar year for many potential reasons, but the causes indicate the law and health and safety training is having a positive impact. 0 deaths have been reported from 2016 through 2020. Decades of science and research tell us that the early years are critical to child development. Children are most likely to thrive in healthy and safe environments that provide positive interactions with nurturing adults. If you are a parent who works, who attends school or training, choosing quality childcare is one of the most important decisions you will ever make for your child. Some of the benefits of licensed childcare are shown on this slide and include background checks. Name-based or comprehensive background checks are required for all individuals working, residing, or volunteering in a childcare facility. This includes fingerprinting and comprehensive checks, which is a paper-based manual process right now. Our program has launched a pilot project utilizing digital fingerprinting machines called live scan machines. We have partnered with DCF to use 6 Department of Children and Families live scan machines. This project has shown success in reducing the amount of time the comprehensive background check takes, and we are working to expand that program across the state with additional live scan machines. Another benefit for licensed childcare is limited enrollment. Our current capacity ratios are determined by the national best practice standards, program type, space available, and the Kansas State Fire Marshal approval. It is important to the health and safety of children in care that an appropriate amount of children are allowed for the size of the physical space and for the number of providers caring for them. Training requirements are another important aspect. Initial training includes foundational training topics such as recognizing the signs of child abuse or neglect, including prevention of shaken baby syndrome and abusive head trauma, and the reporting of suspected child abuse or neglect. Basic child development, including the supervision of children, safe sleep practices and sudden infant death, prevention and control of infectious disease, including immunizations, prevention of and response to emergencies due to food and allergic reactions, building and premises safety, including identification and protection from hazards that could cause bodily injury, including electrical hazard, bodies of water, and vehicular traffic, emergency preparedness and response planning for emergencies resulting from a natural disaster, a pandemic, or a human-caused event, including violence at a facility, handling and storage of hazardous materials, and the appropriate disposal of biocontainments, including blood and other bodily fluids or waste. Also, precautions when transporting children, if transportation is provided, and medication administration. Health and safety is a critical part of licensed care. In addition to regulations, the licensee is required to develop a safe sleep plan and share with the parent or guardian, develop and post a discipline plan, develop an emergency plan, practice emergency drills, and report to the parent or guardian and KDHE any critical incident, serious injury, or death. On this slide, you can see the 4 different types of licensed programs that KDHE monitors. Additionally, KDHE Child Care Licensing licenses referral and resource agencies. Right now, our regulations state that a licensed daycare home can have a max of 10 children with 1 provider. The total number allowed is determined by the age of the youngest child in care. Group daycare homes have a maximum of 12 children with 2 providers. Group daycare homes may operate with 1 provider when the attendance meets the licensed daycare home requirements. The total number of children allowed is determined by the age of the youngest child in care. Home-based facilities operate under statutes, general regulations, and program type regulations. The Child Care Licensing Program is currently doing a comprehensive review of our regulations to ensure our programs are aligned with best practices, to ensure we are capturing the voice of our regulated community, as well as early care and education partners across the state, and ensuring we are meeting the requirements of the Federal Child Care Development Block Grant and the Kansas State Fire Marshal. Child care centers and preschools have a maximum capacity that is determined by Kansas State Fire Marshal approval and our child care licensing regulations regarding indoor and outdoor space per child. Additionally, the program must have a qualified program director and an assistant if the capacity is more than 100 children, and sufficient qualified staff. Child care centers and preschools operate under statutes, general regulations, and program type regulations. School-age programs' maximum capacity is determined by the Kansas State Fire Marshal approval, as well as child care licensing regulations regarding indoor and outdoor space per child. Additionally, the program must have a qualified program director and sufficient qualified staff. An administrator is required if the program has a licensed capacity of 91 children or more. School-age programs operate under statutes, general regulations, and program type regulations. Drop-in programs' maximum capacity is determined by the Kansas State Fire Marshal approval and child care licensing regulations regarding indoor and outdoor space per child. Additionally, the program must have a qualified program director and sufficient qualified staff. Drop-in programs are also operated under statutes, general regulations, and program type regulations. This slide shows our current child in care data. Please note that total capacity reflects the capacity for facilities to serve, not the actual spots available. Or they are the actual spots available, not the actual numbers of children enrolled. Day-to-day enrollment changes frequently, so actual enrollment is not tracked. Our providers have the ability to limit their enrollment based on their personal ability to care for children and meet the needs of children in their care. While a provider may have a capacity available of 10 children, they might choose to only serve 6. We will allow them to self-regulate to ensure that they can meet the needs of the children they have in care. It is important to note, however, that providers often feel pressure from their community to serve the most children their license allows. It is important to have in regulation ratios, and maximum capacities that ensure the health and safety of our children and our providers, that meet Kansas State Fire Marshal Code, and that also meet the requirements of our federal block grant. On this slide, we talk about when a license for home-based care is not required. So a license is not required when when childcare is provided in the home of a child's relative, when childcare is provided in the child's own home, when there is an irregular childcare that's arranged between friends or neighbors on an exchange basis, and when childcare is provided for not more than 2 children, unrelated to the provider, for 20 hours a week or less, and the home has not been closed as a result of an enforcement action. The total time is determined by adding the hours each child is cared for weekly. So that's cumulatively, not per child. Also, a license is not required for a preschool or a school-age program when the program is operated under the Kansas Department of Education. If a provider has questions about when a license is required, they can reach out to us and we'll go through this step by step with them. Illegal care does still happen in the state of Kansas. The Child Care Licensing Program investigates every report of illegal care. However, if an individual is providing illegal care, they are not licensed, so they do not have to let us into their home. If we do identify an illegal care operation, we work with those individuals to share with them the benefits of being licensed, the opportunity for technical assistance, for grants, for DCF subsidy. We work with them to help them get licensed, providing them every support that we can. The Kansas Department of Health and Environment Child Care Licensing Program is one piece of the larger Kansas child care puzzle. Our program is funded through the Department of Children and Families with the Child Care Development Block Grant funds. We fulfill the health and safety requirement of that federal grant. KDHE, DCF, the Department of Education, the Children's Cabinet, as well as early care and education professional organizations and early care and education professionals are all working together to improve the child care system in Kansas. Just some of the supports we have in place or are working actively to put in place include impact grants for current child care providers to help them ensure they can provide safe places for their children in care. We have just finalized a contract to provide startup grants for new child care providers to ensure that they have all the supports they need to open a new child care facility or in-home care. Our licensed providers have access to an ongoing system of support that includes our child care licensing surveyors and our state program staff. Also, we have developed a child care health consultant network in partnership with DCF and Child Care Aware that allows providers to connect with one-on-one technical assistance providers from anything from applying to grants to business supports to training and development. We are working on developing a workforce registry and a formal career pathway for early care and education professionals, as well as working on tackling how we can, as a state, provide livable wages for our providers and much needed supports such as health insurance. You can learn more about the importance of childcare licensing as a public health prevention program, early childhood program, workforce development opportunity, and economic development opportunity at our website, which is listed on this slide. You can explore our online information system, which is located at this link right here. And you can contact the Kansas Department of Health and Environment Child Care Licensing Program directly if you have questions or concerns. And if you have cases that you're hearing from your constituents and would like to discuss those situations with us one-on-one, please reach out to us. We're always there for you. My contact information is available here on the slide, or you can reach us through our KDHE legislative liaisons. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present. I will stand for any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. And I think we'll go ahead and do questions on regulations right now. And then are you available to stick around through the committee?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we may have other questions after hearing other testimony today. I wanted to ask about the fingerprint pilot program. Let's see, first of all, where was the pilot done?
We worked with 6 DCF program sites across the state. So Wichita, I wish I had the list in front of me, but I don't. But 6 regions across the state that already have DCF service sites. And I should have had the list, but I don't have it in front of me. So I'll
That's
make
okay.
sure I'll send that to you.
That's okay. It was spread across the state, though.
Yes.
So then where was the fingerprinting actually done? Was it done at the DCF location?
Yes, at those DCF regional service sites. And they have a secure server, so they were able to keep our waivers that are required in their secure server for us. So that's where we started because they already have those live scan machines. And next, we're hoping to spread across the state to sheriff's departments and police departments that already have live scan machines. That's going to be our next step.
So how did you see that improving the time lag? I know I heard a lot about complaints about how long the fingerprinting was taken previously.
Yeah, this digital process is a little bit more streamlined process. There is still some kinks that we have to work out, but they're not doing actual physical fingerprinting and ink. So that takes away the problem of prints that weren't readable when they come in. It streamlines the process of sending those paper packets back and forth. So it has shown a positive impact. And hopefully when we're able to expand across the state, we'll be able to improve that even more. There is some things we have to work out as far as the KBI system talking to our KDHE system and some other things that still need to be investigated, but it is showing a positive impact so far.
All right, great. Thank you for that information. So Representative Vaughn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Mark, for your presentation. That was really comprehensive. I was wondering, on the slide where you talked about the licensing care types, you briefly mentioned the ratios and maximum capacities, and I was wondering if you could just repeat those numbers to make sure that I got all of them right for the licensing types.
Sure. So the ones that I have listed on the slide, I do not have childcare centers and school age programs and drop-in programs ratios listed on that slide, but maximum capacity for licensed daycare homes with 1 provider is 10. Maximum capacity for group daycare homes with 2 providers is 12. And we would be happy to send you a copy of all of our ratios after this, for sure. That is one of the regulations that we are reviewing right now and are moving forward with as our priority is looking at those ratio tables for licensed daycare homes and group daycare homes, as well as looking at the age ranges in there. Child care centers, an infant is defined as 0 to 12 months. And in licensed and group daycare homes, it's 0 to 18 months. So we're looking at aligning those definitions and then increasing our ratio tables to the amount that we possibly can. That's still going to be in line with Kansas State Fire Marshal, as well as the CCDF funds, which is how we're funded.
Great. Thank you so much. That's really good info. Yeah, if you could send those numbers, that would be really helpful.
We sure will.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Good question. Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to be back. And Ms. Mark, thank you for the presentation. That was amazing. Quick question. You mentioned livable wages for our providers. Could you explain that a little bit more and help us understand how to help you in that regard with the important work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think all of you are probably aware that child care providers and early care and education providers do not make a livable wage. It's a business model is really hard to sustain. It's when you don't want to move the cost of that onto families. So you either increase the cost of care so your providers can make a livable wage and you jack up those prices for families, or you don't pay your staff very much. So it's hard to retain staff. Providers are leaving their field to go work at Target and fast food places because they can make more money in those areas. So that's one of the problems. We are working on as a group, us, DCF, the Children's Cabinet, all of our providers across the state, the folks here that are going to present after me. That's one of our biggest issues that we're working on. We've had big ideas. We've had lots of discussion. It's an ongoing problem that I don't think there's any really clear solutions for yet, but we're still continuing that discussion every time we meet and talk. We're considering every support that we have available and how we can leverage and blend and braid funding. It's one of the things that's our top priority. I'm sure others on this call will also have conversation about that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually was here when Lexi's law passed, and I have a picture of Lexi at home, which is very sweet and a memory of that time. But my question on this is, did that set the tone for what we needed to do and where we were behind, and how has that been the leader as we have moved forward?
So Lexi's law definitely set the tone for that, for health and safety moving forward. We changed a lot of our regulations when Lexi's law came into effect. You can see those impact numbers that I presented, how it has been successful in the state as far as lowering our enforcement actions that are happening, lowering our death rate that is happening in childcare. So it definitely set the tone moving forward that we are a state that cares about the health and safety of our children. That is of utmost important to us, and that is what we will consider first when we think about what regulations need to be put in place.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Further questions? Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Mark, for being here. I recently received an inquiry from a director of a school located inside of a church that discussed, some of the stringent regulations, as they put it, that you've discussed here. And towards the end of the text, it says, "I'm looking for reprieve during this time, as it's difficult, going through the COVID with the pandemic and people quarantining and whatnot." She's looking to start a conversation with somebody about trying to get some emergency changes. Have those conversations begun? Is there any light you can shed upon that for us as a committee?
So we are doing a comprehensive review of our regulations right now. We do have some policy enhancements in place, and we are looking if there is other policy enhancements that need to be put in place for barriers that are cropping up during COVID-19 and have cropped up during COVID-19. We, of course, are always welcome to specific conversations with any provider, with any constituents. So please pass on my contact information and have them reach out to us directly, and we will talk with them one-on-one and discuss their specific situation.
Thank you for that. And I will do so, because they go on to state that, other preschool directors, have had similar conversations and just need a little relief. Thank you. Thank you,
Love
Madam
to
Chair.
hear from them.
Yeah, I think several of us have heard statewide from different facilities. So yeah, we'll appreciate it. We'll pass on your information.
Please do.
Other questions? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation and answering all of our questions, and we may have more later.
Thank you so much. I'll stick around.
Okay, next up, we have a presentation on health and safety child care assistance programs with Carla Whiteside Hicks. Is she here? Yeah. Hi, welcome to the committee. Is your mic on? Sorry, can you?
That would help.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
So thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony regarding DCF's role, the Department for Children and Families' role in developing and supporting programs and practices intended to promote high-quality learning experiences for our children in safe environments, including fair and equitable access to those experiences. Next slide, please. Just making me do this on my own, aren't you? This one. Technology. All right, so I'm going to provide a little bit of history so we know how DCF got to our role in managing our CCDF funds. The Child Care and Development Block Grant Act of 2014 reauthorized the Child Care and Development Fund program for the first time since 1996. And listed on the slide are the primary purposes of CCDF. Research has demonstrated that access to stable, high-quality child care can promote school readiness and success for children, employment for parents, and economic security for families. And the overarching goal of CCDF is to design and implement policies and practices that support that goal. The Administration for Children and Families is within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and it's responsible for federal programs that promote the economic and social well-being of families, children, individuals, and communities. And so on this slide, you can see where the Office of Child Care fits within this organizational structure. And I work closely with our Region 7 Office of Child Care staff to ensure that we are positioned to best serve the families in Kansas. In 2016, Health and Human Services published the CCDF final rule, and that is what primarily guides the actions that we take regarding our CCDF initiatives. The final rule incorporates and clarifies changes made through the CCDBG Act of 2014, and one area of clarification is the role of the lead agency. DCF serves as that lead agency in the state of Kansas, and listed on this slide are the primary responsibilities of my CCDF team. On this slide, you can see that within those primary focuses, those primary purposes of CCDF, final rule further clarified and further defined for us exactly what was supposed to be happening with our CCDF funds. And so the items that you see listed on this slide are actually the 8 components of our CCDF state plan, which we're required to update and submit for approval every 3 years to, again, indicating specifically how we are going to meet each of those 8 areas of compliance. This is one of my favorite slides. Federal expectations of me as a CCDF administrator for the state are that I work with all of these groups that are represented on this slide, and that's a lot. And what you can see there is, for example, you just heard from Kelly Mark. KDHE is represented on this slide. Kansas State Department of Education is represented on this slide. Our tribal communities, all of these groups coming together to make sure that we are building a solid foundation of early childhood care for the children in Kansas. One area, because someone asked me about it recently, the ECAC/SAC is our State Advisory Council. It is a required component of our CCDF grant, and in the state of Kansas, the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund serves in that capacity. So all of those things work together so that we can, as I said, develop and manage those programs that are going to support the families and the children we serve. So on this slide, you can see the various ways families can apply for the child care subsidy program through DCF. Obviously, with COVID, we have changed a lot. So rather than clients having to come into the office to complete that application and provide the information, these are the various ways they can get information to us. So we try everything we possibly can to make our clients feel comfortable and make it easy for them to access the services that we have for them. And this slide simply shows how we are receiving applications. So in the blue, you see paper applications, and the yellow or the orange, those are the online applications that we receive. And you can see we are getting more and more of our clients are using that online self-service portal to be able to provide the information that we need. And it's not just submitting the application. If we need verification of employment, and so we're asking for check stubs, those can be submitted through that system so that clients do not have to come into the office if they're not comfortable with those face-to-face encounters. Ms. Marks talked about the live scanning that we've done in several offices around the state. This slide simply shows where we have DCF offices in the state of Kansas. And so we are really looking to expand that program. That's just another example of how we are working closely with KDHE to make sure that we are meeting those licensing requirements and make sure that those who are currently providers or wanting to be providers have somewhere close to them where they can make sure that they are being fingerprinted. So our general eligibility for subsidy, we recently increased the income guideline. It was 185% of the federal poverty level. We have increased that to 250% of federal poverty level. So there are more families in Kansas who are now meet that basic financial eligibility criteria for childcare. And with that, the countable income also has to be below 85% of the state median income. Some more eligibility factors for childcare are listed on this screen. This is just, these are the ones that we see most often as far as how parents can apply for childcare subsidy. Families do have to be working a minimum of 20 hours per week at least minimum wage. And when I say that, there's some leeway, if you will. So we absolutely encourage families to apply. Every household is different. Every circumstance is different. So we really want families to apply so that we can take into account their specific information and we can then make an accurate eligibility determination. More eligibility factors: cooperation with child support services, U.S. citizenship for the child who's receiving subsidy. One thing about the child care program is that it is for the child. It is not for the parents, and so it's the child's information that we are trying to verify in that area. Also, Ms. Mark talked about the health and safety standards that our child care providers must meet. Providers can be licensed through KDHE. That does not mean that provider is DCF enrolled. And so, of course, we want to encourage providers to become DCF enrolled so that our families who are receiving DCF subsidy can use those providers for their care. Benefits are issued through the EBT system. It's the same card. If the family is also receiving food assistance, it's that same card. It's a different pot of money, but it's on the same card. And so our parents are then responsible for paying the child care provider in the same fashion that non-subsidy parents would do. Our child care rates, this is where it can get complicated. So every 3 years, we are required by our CCDF grant to conduct a market rate survey and to determine the average rates charged by providers per county, per type of facility, and by age of children. Our current provider rates are set at an average of the 65th percentile based on the 2018 market rate survey. Effective April of this year, we will be increasing that to the 85th percentile. Again, increasing those rates that providers are paid, which, as you'll see in the next slide, then can potentially decrease the amount of out-of-pocket that a family may have. So on this slide, these are examples, just examples. Please do not quote me on this. Our child care policies are complex, which again is why we encourage families to simply apply. But you can see, based on this particular scenario with these households, you can see the difference in what those child care amounts would be, and then bottom line, what the out-of-pocket for that household would be for a family in Crawford County and that same family in that same situation in Johnson County. We know, and we often have to remind our families that child care is a subsidy. It is not intended to cover the entire amount of the child care cost. We want to do what we can within our policies to get as close to covering that amount as we possibly can. These are our child care caseloads. So you can see, as of November of last year, we were serving 11,392 children in the state of Kansas, and that's just those families receiving child care subsidy. $5 million for that one month, that's a lot of money that families do not have to pay themselves because we are able to cover that cost for them through the CCDF grant. And this slide is just similar to that one, just giving you an idea of what the caseload has been over the last several years. We are seeing more families who need child care. Of course, with the pandemic, childcare is hard to find. I mean, you were just talking about those instances where we have facilities who are struggling. And so that's one of our goals right now, is to make sure that we are meeting those ever-changing needs. You will have, sorry. There we go. You will have in your packet a spending overview. So what we are doing with our pandemic relief dollars, so we have 3 separate pots of money that we're talking about. We have the CARES Act, we have KRSA, we have ARPA, and we have received additional CCDF dollars in each of those bills. So for the state of Kansas alone, in addition to our regular CCDF funds, we've received roughly an additional $440 million in child care funds to provide services to the families we serve, to the children, to the providers. One of the things that we have done is, Ms. Mark was talking about the fees for background checks. We are using some of these federal dollars to cover those fees for existing providers who it's time for their renewal, and for those who are wanting to enter to that field, so that is not a barrier to them becoming a licensed and a DCF enrolled provider. We have also issued sustainability grants for providers. And what we have found is that most of our providers are using those funds to pay additional salaries. They have used them to meet some of the health and safety standards. So they're using them to enhance their businesses. And we are also making sure that they have the information that they need to be able to sustain their businesses. So helping them with their business practices or business models, things like that. Our Hero Relief Program is one of the first initiatives that we started with our CARES Act funds. So back in April of 2020, we initiated the Hero Relief Program, and what that did was it allowed essential workers, how we had defined essential workers, to have access to childcare. And that's when we started with raising that income guideline to 250% of the federal poverty level. We then realized that, we need to change the definition of essential workers. So we expanded that definition based on what we were hearing from employers, from providers. We expanded that definition so that there were more families who are eligible. We are now we have now changed that guideline for all families. So all families in the state of Kansas, if they have income at or below 250% of the federal poverty level, they could potentially be eligible for child care subsidy. These are the basic categories for what we have done so far with our pandemic relief funds, and you will see this in the document that you have. Quality improvement, wanting to make sure that our families have access to high quality childcare. That is a mandate from our CCDF. That direct provider support has been critical to them, and so we are excited for the things that we've been able to do to help our providers serve the families. Right. So thank you again for the opportunity to share some of the work that our CCDF team is doing in collaboration with our partners. We could not do this alone, but we are so excited that we are able to meet the evolving needs of those we serve. And I now stand for questions.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. We have Representative Penn.
Dr. Whiteside-Hicks, thank you so much for being here today. That was an excellent presentation. And thank you for the work that you and your team do. I just wanted to ask a quick question concerning the access to childcare, the information and the data, and the comment that you made about that providers can be licensed but not necessarily DCF enrolled. Do you see, it's a two-part question, do you see any availability or any space in there for a technological solution to marry up or create an interface for that data so that it can transpose between your organization and DCF one hit, and would that be cost effective and efficient?
You mean so that if a provider is licensed, they're automatically DCF enrolled?
Right. So some of that data sharing on an interface so that we don't have to do the paper trail and chase after boxes hidden in the ceilings and all.
What we find is that it is the provider's choice, and one reason for that is that out-of-pocket expense for the family. So if the provider chooses to accept DCF, subsidy, families who are receiving subsidy, then there is that risk that the family may not be able to meet that out-of-pocket expense. So that it's a provider choice.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Neighbor.
You also spoke of the extra funding that you had, which has allowed you to give more grants. Are those federal dollars one-time money, or are they going to go on? And if they are one-time money, how would you fill that gap when those funds are no longer there? Thank you.
Great question. That is absolutely part of the conversation. We don't want to start a program that we will not be able to sustain. So CARES Act, CRSA, and one part of the sustainability grants from from ARPA, those one time. We have until September of 2022 to obligate those funds, and until September of 2023 to liquidate. For the discretionary dollars from ARPA, we have an extra year to do that. So we are trying to make sure that whatever we do, we can sustain that. So we're trying to build that solid foundation that will meet the needs, but we don't want to we don't want to fund programs that we're going to have to take away from our providers in a couple of years.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Helmer.
Yes, and thank you very much for being here. I really enjoyed your talk. The two previous representatives hit on quite a bit of what I was going to ask you, but another thing, the money that the funds that you have, I saw that in the data that you showed, the different counties, they end up out of pocket. And just a suggestion, I work with a lot of foster families, so I'd really like to see that evened up a lot, just as a suggestion, because I know a lot of them just are, to stay in the foster family, they're spending a lot of money, so I'd really like to see that evened up a lot, more even across the counties. And the other thing, federally, I just retired from counseling, and so I worked with a ton of counseling kids foster-wise, and I truly enjoyed the foster kids. But I would really like to see some of the money as a suggestion, and I know I'm supposed to be asking questions, but I'm asking, are there any programs in schools yet specifically for foster kids that they can blend more in with school kids, because a lot of them just really struggle in schools, you know, because they're put in and taken out and put in and taken out, and they just feel ostracized and maybe not belonging. So do you have anything going like that in Kansas now?
Not on my little section of the org chart, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. With the foster care children, I will say we have a separate unit, and all they do is process child care applications for foster families. So we do recognize that we don't want that out-of-pocket expense to be a barrier for someone choosing to participate in the foster care program. So we are addressing that. For the programs like that, I can absolutely check with our other departments and see if that's something that we have. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's all our questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a moment and return to the order of business of the request for bill introductions, and ask for our state secretary to treasurer. I'm sorry, state secretary.
That's okay.
Never mind. It's been a
you.
long week and it's Wednesday.
It's only third
Treasurer.
day, right? Yeah. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Good afternoon. I'm Kansas State Treasurer Lynn Rogers, and I'd like to request an introduction of a bill, 2376 RS number. It would update the ABLE Act. Those of you that are aware of ABLE, it's an account that individuals that live with a handicap can open, and in November of 2020, the Trump IRS updated the regulations. Our state law only allows someone forgot, conservators and guardians to open those accounts, and this regulation opens it up to family members. So we need state law to allow us to do that. So would love to see if we can get your support on that as well. So RS 2376.
Committee, do we have any questions? Okay, are there any objections? Okay, without objection,
Great. Thank you very much.
or request introduction. Thank you. And sorry for the confusion on which day. I'm glad you could make it over. Okay, we'll return to our agenda with Kansas Action for Children, Mitch Rucker. And these next few presentations, I think we'll go through all of them and then take questions.
The button. Back in person. All right. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify here this afternoon. I appreciate being included, along with the experts and industry leaders that you'll hear from here in a bit. So diving right in, talking about childcare, the top line issue is this, is that parents cannot afford to pay more for childcare, and childcare providers cannot afford to make less. The cost right now of infant care in Kansas can range from about 12% to 15% of median household income per child. So that's 2 kids, that's eating up, a quarter to a third of a household income right there. And at the same time, the childcare providers are making only about $9 an hour on average. So that's a pretty significant disconnect. And it also means that childcare providers, that wages for the industry are falling below that, as was alluded to earlier, those in retail, those in food service, and other fields that are drawing staff away from childcare. So because the cost is so high for parents and because the wages are so low for the providers, there's not a standard market fix for this. Providers can't really increase their rates because then parents wouldn't be able to afford to get their kids into care, and they can't lower their rates because they're already so underpaid. And so that requires some sort of external infusion of funding into the child care market in order to stabilize that. And so whether that comes from private business, whether that comes from philanthropy, whether that comes from the state or federal or local in some cases, governments, that is what's needed to stabilize the child care system. And we're seeing the effects of this hitting home and hitting the Kansas economy right now. Going around the state, either virtually or in person, hear from businesses that are struggling to retain or recruit new staff because their potential employees can't find childcare in the area, or the care that is available is just too expensive. This is hitting, our schools with teachers being forced to leave the classroom. This is hitting hospitals with nurses, pharmacists, doctors being forced to make the choice between working or raising their kids. And it's hitting all over the state, whether we're in Johnson County or we're in a little town in Hodgman County where I come from. And so it's pretty bleak there for the parents and for the providers. But it's also pretty bleak for the kids. As I believe Kelly Mark attested to, a lot of the brain development that a person has happens in those first 5 years, about 80%, in fact. And we're now able to see inside of a kid's head with medical technology, and we can see the neurons firing, and we can see those connections being physically made when they're introduced to different stimuli. And, so when a kid does not have access to high-quality childcare, when they're not in a safe and nurturing environment during those initial 5 years, they miss out on their one opportunity that they'll never get back to have a healthy and positive upbringing. And we see both the benefits of that and research that's been done to show that kids that do have access and are enrolled in high-quality early learning systems do have better life outcomes, and we see the negative results of kids who don't have access to that or who have, the technical term is adverse childhood experiences, and we see the effects of that that carry on into adulthood. So, with that, there are a few things that the legislature can do to fix this or to help fix the problem. One is, help incentivize greater buy-in into building our system of affordable, high-quality childcare. So that one small piece of that could be a tax credit to help businesses offset the cost of providing childcare as a benefit to their employees. We could expand access to the Child Care Assistance Program that Dr. Whiteside Hicks was just talking about. Right now, as she said, it's set at a market rate, which is just what the market can bear. And as we just talked about, the market is not necessarily functional at the moment. And so going to a cost of quality estimation could help better reflect the cost of providing quality care to a kid and perhaps incentivize more providers to accept the DCF subsidy. So with that, I will reserve the rest of the time for the folks who work in the field and stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Mitch. Next up, we have Tanya Bullock, testifying virtually with Child Care Aware of Kansas.
Yes, hi, thank you. My apologies for not making it in person. Thank you, Chairperson Concanon and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to provide this testimony on the strengths and challenges of childcare in our great state of Kansas. My name is Tanya Bullock, and I serve as the Program Director of Child Care Aware of Kansas, Region 2, located at Child Start in Wichita. I am one of 4 child care resource and referral agencies. For short, we call them CCR&Rs, which you had seen, I believe, on Dr. Whiteside Hicks's beautiful favorite slide. We are all part of a statewide network. Together, we work collaboratively to ensure that all young children and families have access to high quality early care and education. I think we're all stressing this today. Our CCR&R network is on the front lines every day, working to provide support families, child care providers, and our communities. Our work truly revolves around 3 core activities. First, we try to focus on connecting families to available childcare, and I know that's what the struggle is right now. When childcare is available, what we do is we provide those families with the resources and the support they need in order to aid them in selecting high quality childcare that meets their unique preferences. Despite our best efforts, though, many Kansas families struggle to find that care at all, let alone enjoy the luxury of choosing which one they want. Between 2017 and 2019, nearly 500 of our state's family child care programs closed, but child care centers and group homes, they held relatively steady. Between May 2020 and May 2021, Kansas did lose 78 total child care programs, which in turn, we lost 938 total child care slots from that total desired capacity of programs in the state, which Ms. Marks had mentioned earlier. So in 2020, licensing renewal deadlines were extended for our child care providers due to the pandemic. But many of those programs ended up closing because they just didn't renew their license by that deadline. So from June 2021 to August of 2021, we lost an additional 279 child care programs. The vast majority of programs we lose are family child care programs, which may disproportionately impact our rural communities. And it certainly is an implication for family choice when they're searching for child care. The second part of our core activities, it revolves around working with our child care providers to improve the overall quality and early care and education of the work that they do. We offer them professional development, coaching, technical assistance around health and safety, business administration, early learning, and many other topics. And then the third part we do is a big part, and this is, where my friends, Ms. Marks, Ms. Whiteside Hicks, all of us that are on this call today, we work hard to partner with all of our communities to develop local solutions to these childcare challenges. We cannot do this alone. We collect extensive data and information about the availability of the different types of childcare that each Kansas county has, and we make that retrievable from a database that we have via our point-in-time data. We work with the communities to understand the information, and then we apply it to local planning and decision-making on how to expand access to childcare based in that local community. So it's specialized to that community. And so over the last 2 years, we've also served as an intermediary for childcare relief funding. So the funding that Dr. Whiteside-Hicks mentioned, the CARES, the sustainability through ARPA, that funding, we've worked with agency partners to distribute just over $15 million in childcare relief funding. And in 2021, that number rose to over $96 million. We closely monitor the rate of access and utilization of those grant funds across the different types of childcare programs, and we look at geography, access to broadband services as well. And each of our local networks, the 4 different CCR&Rs, also provides regional grant navigators who personally assist every childcare program in finding and accessing those available grant opportunities. And then they walk them through until they're done and are able to receive that funding. Kansas has done so much to stabilize the existing childcare infrastructure, but as you can see, the downward trend of childcare availability began before the pandemic. And the pandemic has only intensified Kansas's childcare crisis. Several underlying factors have contributed and continue to contribute to long-term losses in these childcare programs. These include thin profit margins with high operating expenses for owners, low wages, lack of benefits for staff, and just overall aging of workforce. And so Kansas's childcare system is just facing a chronic workforce shortage, which is compounded right now by COVID-19 exposure and illness, and a shortage of substitutes to help fill these slots. And all this is leading to under-enrollment, loss of revenue of childcare programs, and very little options for these families. So moving forward, it's critical for Kansas to address not only the stabilization of our current system, but the creation of a new childcare infrastructure. Efforts to retain our current workforce, but also create new professionals and include strategies to, what my friends were mentioning earlier, increased compensation, supports for professional development and education, expanding investments and startup costs for even new childcare programs. Kansas childcare is essential to our thriving economy, and it requires active participation, both public and private. So I appreciate your time, your consideration, and hearing me out. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this topic now or in the future. And I just want to thank you, Chairperson Concanon and committee, for your time today. And I'd be happy to discuss the current landscape now or follow up with the committee later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, and we'll have questions here in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Jennifer Adhema, Kansas Head Start Association. Sorry if I messed that up.
That's okay. It's edema, like the swelling. Now you'll never forget it. Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today about one piece of the child care landscape in Kansas, and that is Head Start. I am the executive director of the Kansas Head Start Association, a not-for-profit organization supporting the 26 Head Start grantees in Kansas. So these 26 grantees are a mix of community-based centers, public schools, community action agencies, and nonprofit organizations. Head Start and Early Head Start are federally funded programs that deliver comprehensive early learning, health, nutrition, and family support services to children birth through 5 and pregnant women living in poverty. Head Start was the preschool program serving children 3 to 5 that was founded in 1965 as a part of the war on poverty. Recognizing the benefits of Head Start and the need for earlier intervention during a critical period of child development, the Early Head Start program was established in 1994 to serve pregnant women and infants and toddlers. Today, I'm using the term Head Start to include Head Start, Early Head Start, and American Indian and Alaskan Native programs, which are all represented in Kansas. One of the key strengths of Head Start is the ability for programs to reflect their local community needs. They strive for community participation and incorporate community feedback into their ongoing self-assessment and program design, and continuously work to meet the specific needs of their children and families. It's this local design that sets us apart. I feel like the mic's going in and out. Do I need to be closer? Are you guys good? Okay. It's this community-specific local design that sets us apart from other types of federally funded programming. This local flexibility allows us to combine federal, state, and even private funding to maximize the impact of available funds. In fact, Kansas was the first state in the nation to fund Early Head Start modeled off of the federal program in 1998. And you probably saw that up on Dr. Whiteside Hicks' favorite slide. So we serve in Kansas nearly 7,000 young children and pregnant women. Children qualify for the program under at least one of the following categories: having a household income at or below the federal poverty level, which is around $25,000 for a family of 4, children or families that are experiencing homelessness, children in foster care, and at least 10% of enrollment slots for every grantee have to be allotted to serve children with identified disabilities. And last year in Kansas, 19% of the children enrolled in Head Start programs were children with disabilities. So Kansas programs only have the capacity to serve 10% of the Kansas children ages 0 to 3 who are eligible for the program. And we only serve 40%, have the capacity to serve 40% of the children ages 3 to 5 who would be eligible for this program. Services are provided to Kansas families through home-based, so home visiting services, or through center-based childcare options. About 5,400 of the 7,000 children served attend center-based programs. These are provided at the Head Start site or through partners in school districts, community-based childcare centers, or family care providers. About 800 of the 5,400 served are in Early Head Start. So these are our birth to 3-year-olds. The remaining 4,600 are enrolled in the 3 to 5-year-old Head Start program. The remaining 1,600 children in Kansas that are enrolled receive their services through weekly home visits provided by the Head Start program. And the vast majority of these 1,600 spaces are designated for children and pregnant women ages birth to 3 enrolled in Early Head Start. So they receive 90-minute weekly home visits that support the child's development and the family's own goals. So pregnant women in that program receive prenatal support and follow-up, including screening for maternal depression, nutrition education, and connection to medical homes if they're needed. So no matter which method of service delivery parents choose, program quality is a focus. All programs must adhere to Head Start program performance standards, which are the model, or which are the foundation of the model. These standards set forth the requirements that grantees must meet to support the cognitive, social, emotional, and healthy development of children from birth to 5. They encompass requirements to provide education, health, mental health, nutrition, and family and community engagement services. The revised standards also incorporate the most recent research on early education practices, family engagement, and child development, and are often seen as the gold standard in the early childhood system. And though the benefits of Head Start programs are well documented, this does not mean that these programs are immune to the challenges experienced by their early childhood colleagues across the state. I meet monthly with directors of all Head Start programs in Kansas to listen to their concerns and challenges, and this fall had the pleasure of visiting a number of programs and listening to their frontline staff. One of the concerns is really addressing the increasingly complex social emotional needs of young children. This continues to challenge all of our programs, and I'm sure those of many of our colleagues as well. Our programs are really charged with serving families experiencing a variety of life stressors. We know that living in poverty, housing instability, community violence, and a variety of other factors can lead to constant stress in a household. And living with this constant stress affects parents and their children and has short and long-term health and social emotional impacts. One of the ways that we're seeing this play out in classrooms is through very disruptive classroom behaviors. And despite the number of resources that Head Start programs have to support staff and teaching staff with these challenges, the work is draining. And our children need help. The goal of teaching these skills is to build their lifetime resilience so that as they grow, they can adapt and handle what comes at them. So that's one challenge. Another challenge facing programs is, like you've heard, a shortage of qualified classroom staff. And for me, the key word here is qualified. As I mentioned previously, we have standards that we have to meet that specify specific credentials and educational backgrounds for classroom teachers. This national early workforce shortage of qualified staff has been present for some time now, but was further exacerbated by the pandemic, leaving programs understaffed and faced with difficult decisions to reduce enrollment or close classrooms in their community, which creates stress for parents who need to go to work. Early childhood workforce compensation, you have heard from others, definitely a concern. It plays a role in the difficulty of recruiting new employees or encouraging post-high school graduates to pursue secondary education in the field of early childhood. And though Head Start staff are typically paid more than their community-based child care or family care provider colleagues, they are still far underpaid when it comes to most school district early childhood teachers or non-early childhood employers like Amazon or Walmart. And in the words of one of our Kansas programs, these staffing issues create ripple effects. When we can't open classrooms because of a lack of staff, parents worry about having to quit their jobs or leaving their children in unsafe environments while they go to work, because they have to go to work. When children experience interruptions in services, child development and progress is slowed, particularly for those children with identified developmental delays who rely on comprehensive services like our programs. So there are many nuances and layers to Head Start that cannot possibly be summarized in 5 minutes, but I will leave you with this. Our Head Start programs are hard at work in your communities, as are the rest of my early childhood colleagues, making it possible for parents to contribute to our economy and setting children up for brighter futures. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Next up, we have virtually Kelly Hoffman, Kansas Parents as Teachers Association. Got tongue-tied.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Concannon and members of the committee. I thank you for the opportunity to meet with you virtually today. As she mentioned, I'm Callie Hoffman. I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas Parents as Teachers Association. Parents as Teachers programs have been building strong communities, thriving families, children that are healthy and safe and ready to learn in Kansas for more than 30 years. In order for children to develop optimally, as you've heard, it's important for parents to understand all the critical stages of a child's early years. That includes how a child grows and develops, how to encourage a child so they can get an exceptional start in life, and how parents find some consistent support that guides them towards useful resources. However, as you've heard many times today, that's easier said than done, especially if you're a first-time parent, a single parent, or have other barriers to overcome. Our parent educators are working under the Parents as Teachers model to provide support by sharing age-appropriate child development information. They address parent concerns and they engage in families and activities in their homes. So why is Parents as Teachers part of the child care discussion in Kansas here today? You've heard over many years that all of the outcomes of Parents as Teachers are grouped into a statement that all of our research and evaluation is consistent that children also must have quality child care and learning environments. This is best shared in a story. We currently have a non-English speaking teen mom that we are providing home visitation services to. This mom has 2 kids, 1 toddler and a newborn. The parent educator has been trying to work with mom to continue her schooling. And due to lack of affordable childcare that's available for infants in her area, as well as some support with transportation, she's not been successful in obtaining regular, consistent childcare. With the help of her parent educator, mom is now going another route. She's going to work on some classes from home. After working with her parent educator, she discovered that she is eligible for Title III Part A, which is access to home education for her to get her GED or high school diploma. So now the parent educator's home visits are including support for a homeschool learning environment for this teen, how to schedule her time, and how to problem solve doing that, all while meeting the needs of 2 young children at home. This is one story among many that our parent educators have been able to share with us in helping families navigate secure quality childcare. This took a dedicated team of professionals to come up with a temporary solution to overcome this situation so this mom can continue her education. But she'll still have to do it while providing childcare for 2 young kids, and this is not ideal. Well, we are very thankful for our partners at Child Care Aware of Kansas and Kansas Action for Children and the Kansas Head Start Association. And I will echo the statement from Kansas Action for Children that despite the essential and integral role that child care plays, we still don't have a child care system in Kansas that supports our families. The cost of child care is too high for many parents, and the wages for the professionals are too low. So therefore, availability continues to be lacking. With the authorization and the award of the Family First Prevention Service Act in 2019, Parents as Teachers has expanded its footprint across Kansas. We're now serving families statewide. We're positioned to take the next steps to be able to support Kansas families to reach their full potential. To date, we've been able to retain 96% of the families enrolled in parent skill building services to keep their kids at home. This is causing families saving the undue stress on families and on the child care or on the foster care system. In order for families to reach their full potential, they need resources such as childcare to be both available and affordable. Thank you, and I will stand with the group for questions.
Okay, thank you. And last up, we have Emily Barnes, Child Care Coalition of Kansas, and Barnes Child Care. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chair Concannon, and thank you to the committee. Yes, I am a member of the Child Care Coalition, or Child Care Provider Coalition of Kansas. But first, I am a family child care provider. Actually, I'm going to take off my mask. I'm a family child care provider. Technically, my license actually, in fact, is a group license. However, I do operate under family numbers. I have operated under group. That's actually what made it possible for my husband and I to buy a house. But it has been most effective for me to follow the family numbers. It helps me take care of my family. It helps me maintain the consistency when we do have staffing issues. So I thank you for this opportunity to come to speak to you. Much of what I had written verbally, I'm going to kind of change just a smidgen because everything that you heard Ms. Mark, Dr. Whiteside Hicks, Ms. Hoffman, Ms. Adema, everything that you heard them talk about, I have lived. What they are saying is true. I cannot charge more. I am thankful and grateful that between my husband and I, we have been able to pull together a very successful, comfortable, wonderful life. However, I am dependent upon him in order to make our budget work. I must ask you to take everything that is being said here seriously. When the pandemic began in March, this does sound like it cuts in and out. When the pandemic began in March, my children, who I had provided care for since they were 1.5, and even infants, many of them were infants when they began with me, some of them were 1.5. They were preparing to go off to pre-K and kindergarten. They were whisked away from me because of the pandemic. We never got that closure. We were able to eke through, and I found some ways to connect with them before sending them off to school. But my business model changed in a matter of days. I'm not the only one who lived this reality. All of us across the state, we were affected by what happened in the pandemic. We are currently working our way through everything. Mistakenly, people say that providers stepped up. We didn't step up. We were already there. We were at the plate. We were giving families the best that we had. We were undersupported, underappreciated, underpaid, overworked. I work 50 hours a week. I am open 10 hours a day. I do not have any break time. I love my children. I love my families. I am truly grateful for the clients that come into my home. When the virus hit Kansas, I knew that my families needed consistent care. I had medical staff in my clientele. Did not have any teachers at the time, but I had clients who needed to be able to continue to work. I also had children who needed consistency. They needed to know that their worlds were not going to be upended by this virus over which we have no control. I remained open, and I remember the day on March 24th, 2020, when I opened the door tearfully to the parents, telling them I could not promise that I knew how to keep their children safe, but I would do the best that I could. And to date, my facility has been virus-free. We have never had a confirmed exposure or case in my facility. We've had a family who had it, but we were not exposed. I'm not the only person who has worked this hard. So I need to ask you to take us seriously, to listen to the evidence that has been presented today. When we talk about these topics, I need to ask you to not bring this into political rhetoric. Our children are not political. They are our future. They are the best things that we have available to us. When a provider comes to you and talks to you, they are telling you their lived experience. But in that, we are drivers of our local economies. We are your answer to growing commerce in our small communities. We are what Kansas needs. I have watched as my friends and my peer support have either had to struggle to figure out how to navigate their business models or close their doors. My network has dwindled, and when I answer the phone calls from desperate families looking for care, and I have to tell them that my first wait list spot is in March of 2023, I don't know how to answer them because I don't know how to connect them to any other people. I am very proud that my happy problem is a wait list of a year. However, part of how that came to be is that one family had to decline their wait list spot for June of this year, so I was able to bump a family from October to June. These are the realities of operating this business. Market rate analysis does not work. But so far, nobody is willing to enter into the conversation of what does it cost for me to provide your grandchild, your child, your neighbor. What does it cost for me to provide them care? Ms. Adema noted the behavioral changes. It's real. It's happening. And in fact, JAMA, the Journal for American Medical Association, published an article dated January of 2022, just last week, showing that in a preliminary study, they have already found the ASQ scores of children born from March 2020 through December 2020 are lower than their age-matched peers who were born before the pandemic. We have a workforce who is dedicated. Because of the statistics that Ms. Mark was able to present today, I am here to tell you, as a product of Lexi's Law, it's working. Where I've been told in the past that not all daycare is good daycare, I'm telling you that is wrong. There is good daycare in this state. Child care providers like myself and my peers that I affiliate with, we stand by evidence-based best practices.
We put them into place, we promote them, and we look to support others who want to do the same thing. Because of that, we are working hard, and I can tell you the landscape of care available to our children is good and strong. But I'm asking you to support us and to stay away from the divides that cause gridlock. So I will end. I'm very, very happy to take questions. I want to tell you that I am exceedingly proud, not just of my work, but also of the work that I have seen other providers do in the last 2 years. I am excited for what our workforce has to produce for our state. We are dynamic, we are diverse, we are dedicated. Please support us as we do our work and as we help the families in our state. I'm happy to take any questions, and a silly little thing, I did bring some of our favorite books from my facility so that you can understand some of the thought process on why I choose things to use with children. And so I stand with the group whenever you are ready for questions.
Okay, well, thank you. Just stay right where you are.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we'll have some questions for you, and thank you for all that you do and your dedication to it. I'm sure that you have some very appreciative families that
Thank you.
that get to do business with you. Then, Representative Mosier, and sorry, just a sec. We're out of time, so we'll just take. Okay, we'll just take a few questions here real quick.
It's not a question. I just want to thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do, and God bless.
Thank you.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a quick question, and thank you for your time and everything that you bring to the fight. This is a question, I believe, for Mr. Mitch Rucker, and I want to say it was probably Ms. Tanya Bullock, whoever can answer it. You made mention that we needed a mix of philanthropy, private business, Fed and state, local government investment, tax credit offset, active participation, all those types of things. Can you show the committee, not right now, but at a later time if possible, what efforts you've been doing with all of those other stakeholders aside from the government investment? Who's coming to the table to help out in this fight? Because this is not political, as she just stated. This is for our kids and this is for our seniors. So let's lock arms and get this done.
Absolutely, yeah, would be glad to. And we have been so fortunate in partners with the chambers of commerce across the state and working with their members and getting this on their legislative agendas. So we have had great buy-in from the business community who recognizes this as a need for the labor force and is willing to pony up. So, yes.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to be misunderstood with this, and it is political. But, you know, the $500 they're going to send my wife and I, we could probably get by. That's $400 million that could help people. The sales tax, $450 million. We can help people. And if you really need that $500, you're going to get help because that money's being extended to your family. So, again, just a thought. If, you know, I can get by without it, I would love to see kids use it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody that was here today on the board. My wife works at a daycare at our church, and I see this. Everything that these people said is so true. They're wonderful, caring, loving people. But I know that if it wasn't for our church supporting the daycare, there were parents that wouldn't have that daycare. And I think it's time for us here in Kansas to step up to the plate. And thank you so much.
Other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for your willingness to come and speak with us today. We really, really appreciate it. And we got your contact information. If we have further questions down the road, we'll get back with you. So, any other business? Okay, we're adjourned and we'll be back here on Tuesday.